All right. Fan screws. Well, it's a Viking. It's the 3.2 kW. And every single time I think, my God, this is the last one of these I'm ever going to have. Another one comes back into my life. This is amp number 076 from the Galaxy Corp. This one does have the lights on it, top and bottom. So, it's got the earlier model gray rubber feet on it. I have noticed over the decade plus, every one of these that comes in here has got one of these fans, and see how the grills are all going the same direction? One of the fans always, it's 180 degrees out every single time. Let's take a quick look at the bottom here. First one ever to come in here without having the grills 180 degrees out on one of these deals. Sweet. Well, this thing is incredibly dirty. Looks like it got wrapped up in foam, like the yellow foam, and then put away someplace that was a little bit moist. I know some of them feminine viewers out there, you don't like the word moist, but it was moist. And some of the foam disintegrated into the fans on the top side. In my mind, this is the top side, because all the guts that matter are on this side of the amplifier. So I wanted to open it up. I want to see what the inside of the tin looks like, and see what the inside of the amp takes a quick looking for here. This don't look too bad. This, on the other hand, Texas Star 10. Should have known better. And too bad. It's got 8 Toshiba, or 16 Toshibas in it. All right, well, we have been here before. Go ahead and disconnect the lower fan kit. I'll pull the amp out of this tin. This tin is in nowhere as bad a shape. The fans are going to require a little bit of cleaning. You'll see that there's some primordial goop that's down there on some of these fans, but the biggest thing to deal with is that bottom tin. So basically what you have here, I know I've pointed this out in the last 4 or 5 of these that I've done, because Texas Star line goes, this is pretty rare. The rarest of the rare is the actual pinball. The almost identical amp. It's got a couple different windings in the transformer, and it uses 2290s in it. The transformers have got different windings in it. It's got 2290s in it, 16 2290s. It's called the pinball. Identically the same thing as far as footprint goes. This is the faceplate for it, the WC Special. This is a new faceplate. Please look at the number. 53,028 on this faceplate. Then sequentialed up with it, I got the next one down, 29. It's 2 Texas Stars bolted together. It's a 16 pill with a ton of heat sink on it. and a whole bunch of fans, and was a mainstay until Texas Star decided to switch over to the DEI HG transistors. These things were a little bit of a firebug in their first iterations. They did not have the shorting bar in here, which I've covered in many a video. And what would happen is one of the red wires would come disconnected from the back, causing the whole amplifier to go into imbalance, and the thing would catch on fire, which they overcame. This looks like it's had some people's fingers in it. That is not Texas Star wiring. That's like a speaker wire of some kind that somebody has added to the on-off switch to make the fans go 100% all the time. Yeah, they bypassed the thermocouple here. Well, put some Teflon there, but it don't look too bad. I brought way worse back from the grave, that is for sure. Oakley dokley. So the first step with any one of these, this amount of heatsink, by the way, is massive. I'd put 32 transistors on this amount of heatsink and just... Whew. Anyhow, the first step that we do is we clean everything. The heatsink wasn't too bad on this. We got most of the muck out of it. Get down in here. It's just mostly dust. Old man spanna spooge. Sitting here looking at this, somebody has gone in here and converted this over to Class C. You see that this has been moved, and the 1.8 ohm resistor in here has been disconnected. And then we go over here to this thing here, and it's been moved. So I got to come fix that. And over here, this has been modified as well. Let me grab this BBI pin here. This piece of ferrite should be attached to that piece of ferrite. And then there's a resistor that goes from here down to board ground. It has been removed. Same thing's going on here. This piece of ferrite's been moved. And then the other thing that I have noticed is not one, but both of the traces here have been burnt. This one here. And this one here. See, let's turn the ISO gain down. You see it's actually been corroded away. Something's got wet on this, and it's been burned before. What causes that, and you'll see that once again the bias has been bypassed. 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 What causes that is somebody either plugs the fans in or unplugs the fan when the fan is on and running. Hence the reason this has been modified so many times. We're going to fix that. So that happened. What I spent a few hours this morning doing was getting the tins cleaned up. This is the bottom one. I got all the foam bits off of it and cleaned it. And well, I had to clean it after I did all the media blasting on the inside, and I knocked all the rust off the inside of the cabinet and got this all cleaned up. So no more rust. I gotta be very careful what I do because this is a vinyl wrap, so I can't like repaint this gray. But I went in here and I media blasted all of this and got all the rust off the inside of the entire side of the cabinet, and then came back and cleared it. So when you glass bead it, it looks just like the rest of the cabinet. But then when you put the clear on it, it goes back to its regular steel. But this was all white and covered with nasty ick. But we got all this cleaned up. All of this is now just clean metal that's been cleared so it won't rust anymore. And then on the top lid, I had to do a lot of the same work on this side of the cabinet. This whole side was all covered in sticky, come some young guy kind of thing. So I cleaned all the glass media off everything. Oh, there's still a little bit more there. And went ahead and cleared everything so it won't ever rust in the future. And yeah, so the cabinet's done per se. So now we got to translate over to doing the power wire modifications on this so we can make it operator safe. Also need to wash it, which is going to require me buying a bunch of 91% rubbing alcohol and just giving it a bath. You know, because like I said, something in here has gotten spilled over here, so we'll get all that cleaned up. Back here, we're going to remove these AC distribution blocks, which are gross. They're all full of corrosion. And we're going to remove these wires completely. Remove all the power wires in here and replace them with new and clean. And we're going to go directly off the back of each one of the output transformers and resum it together. Let's see. There's part of me that wants to do this differently than what I've done in the past. What I've done in the past is I bring a distribution bar in here and we bypass the fuses completely. We're going to do that anyhow, no matter what. Thinking about doing dual 4-aught gauge runs, or dual 4-gauge runs of ground on this side. Bring one over to here and have the other one for this side, and then dual 4-gauge 8, and then have one going here and one going here, if that makes any sense. But we've got to modify a couple things here. Main thing is we want to get the bias going again on this, so this is operational on sideband if somebody really wanted to go that way. But key and transistor's been launched out of this a couple times. We're going to clean that up. Solder work around this looks pretty pathetic. So yeah, let's strip all the power wires out of it and we'll go from there. Okay, trucking right along. We got our power distribution bus for a positive side installed. As I was putting our brand new bias resistors in here and reconnecting everything, my brain kept telling me I was missing some shit. Well, I really got to looking. Here's a good example. We'll zoom in here. You know, one day I'll quit being cheap and just buy the actual, like, micro adjustment lens. As you can see, there used to be a capacitor hooked up here, and it hooked up over here on this trace, right? Well, the same thing went on over here. Specifically here, you can see where it was hooked up here and then hooked up here. Somebody went through and cut those out. I'm like, man. I repaired this trace over here too, the one that was back over here, and I put a fuse on the on-off switch, and I brought it down to the positive rail, so we never have to worry about blowing that trace up again. And then I added another filter capacitor back here. So anyhow, I've added, there's supposed to be a filter cap here and another one here. But this trace was all borked off, if you guys remember me talking about this. Here's the leftover bits. This isn't the first time I've ever shown the replacement of one of these. The struggle is, come on hands, there we go. The struggle is real. This trace is fried, and it was attached. This is the trace that provides 12 volt to this switch, which is the fan override. The way the system is stock wired is that it gets 12 volt directly from down here off the board. There was a wire that come from here, and then on the back side of this metal panel, which you can't see, is the thermocouple. And then you have your fan output lead that goes over here to the plug. And don't worry, I've I've prepared myself comfortably for being able to plug this plug in and unplug it, and there's no clearance conflict. We just have a little piece of solder or something fall off. Yes. Hold on with me, guys. If I don't get this now, I'll forget that it dropped off of there. Yeah, it's a little piece of flick. Yeah, clearance, no problem here. There's a hot wire that goes from here directly to the back side of this thermocouple, whatever, switch, and then it runs back here to this plug, and this switch allows you to bypass this unit and have it so that the fans turn on all the time. What I think has happened is somebody at some point, the amp got too hot, they burnt this trace, and instead of repairing the trace like what we're getting ready to do, they just came off the on-off switch, went over here and went over here to the fan. Because the fan was on, and then whatever happened, and they very quickly unplugged the fans, which would have blown this trace. Because at some point or another, there's supposed to be a 10 amp fuse that goes from here to here to the fans, which I'm going to replace. I got to go down to my stereo shop and go pick up another one of these, and we'll throw it in here. That sits between here and back here. We want that on a fuse because as you're driving down the road, you don't know if this is going to come unplugged or whatnot, and we want to save ourselves from blowing up this trace again. So, but this is how we do the repair of the trace. This is the cleanest and the smoothest way I've come up with, is you cut the old trace out, and that is copper tape. You can look at trace tape, solid copper tape. I've got multiple different sizes of rolls. I usually cut it to fit the trace, and then I just come along and I flow solder from here down to here, nice and smooth. And when I'm done, I mean, there's a little bit of a bubble there. I mean, it's not perfectly like brand new, but it's sure a whole lot better than just taking a piece of wire and laying it on there. So I wanted to show that to you before we got that far. And then I'm going to take this 25 volt capacitor. So it's 16 volt stock, right? I'm going to solder it right here to help support the trace. So I want to show that to you before I went and I covered it up. And then after I get the fans all wired up, we're going to give this thing a bath. We're going to put two new coupling devices on here. You know, female, male. Yeah. Give it a bath, put two new coax connectors on it, because these inevitably, especially the output one, is famous for getting hot. And that center pin drifting out and then shorting out, it'll fall out in the box and it'll short out. So, and then we'll start doing power wire upgrades. So we're starting to round home base now. I can't believe I'm putting all this work into this amp and I don't even know if the transistors work yet. I'm crazy. Okay, well, I'm gonna get rid of this, and I'm gonna get rid of this. Get rid of this rusted hardware. Get rid of these corroded, old worn out, slopped out coax connectors. Get rid of these out of spec resistors. Worn out piece of wire. Clapped out like Jesus. All right, so giving her a bath. It's all cleaned up. Everything's been repaired. Now we're going to start putting it back together. Now a few of these transistors, like this one here, and this one here, and like that one there, and so on, they're a little faded, the paint, but this thing cleaned up like a pretty penny. Look at this. It's shiny in there now. The amount of garbage that came out of this thing when I washed it, oh, gross. I put a picture up in Patreon the other day saying this was my problem child of the day and I was going to get her all fixed up. And the guys saw that and they jumped on it, and this dude and I have been playing phone tag for like 2 days as I've been working on this thing. And he's like, I gotta have that. I'm like, okay. So this thing's already got a fairly decent home to go to. The guy's got a 600 amp power supply built out of those HP switchers, so I think we're good. The only thing I got to do now is put power wire on it. And I went to the welding store the other day and I bought, I bought 2 males. I need a female too. Son of a diddly fart. Well, I guess I'm going over there Monday because I'm putting welding lugs on this thing. The big ones, like this. These are brand new. I just looked at the pack and I need a male and I need a female. These are your best connector dollar for dollar that you can buy. I mean, period. Anderson clips are cute. Shit, that screws me up big time. Anderson clips are cute, but you don't quite get the job done. So that whole insert, thrust, and twist action is the best surface area that you can really get. But, okay, we're gonna just leave the power wires long so I can hook it up and run it, and I'll put the welding lugs on it after the fact. But everything's clean. Tins are clean, lids are all fixed, fans all ready to go. We left this stock, so if you want the fans to come on all the time, flip the switch. We beefed this all up here, rewired everything back here. The only thing I have that I really want to do is I want to put the crush nuts, 632 crush nuts, throughout this thing. Because putting them friggin' sheet metal screws in here, that does not work out. It just doesn't last. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 times you can take the screws in and out and then they're stripped. Then you got to go to a bigger one, then go to a bigger one, then go to a bigger one. So we're going to go that route. We're going to 632 this up. I'll brand new hardware around the PL259s, brand new PL259s in here. So I'm going to bring my ground wire in. I'm going to tie it to here on the board. And then I'm going to run a piece of 8 gauge from here over to here on this board. And then we're going to bring our 8 gauge in and loop it around and sneak it up between here and lay it down about here on the board, probably somewhere in here. So then we're going to run our racetrack of wires off of this and then our racetrack of wires off of this out to here. So let's put power wire in this box. It is done. So we got our crush nuts and everything. We got the power wires in everything. Okay. Everything's all zip tied up. All looks pretty now. Nice, beautiful racetrack of wires. I wanted to point out that this phenolic bar that's back here isn't our little tiny thin phenolic that we normally use. This is some stuff that I picked up years ago. And the fiberglass substrate is like 4 times thicker than what our normal phenolic is. Because there's a lot of physical mass weight that's going to be on this thing, and I need it to stay rigid. So I used this, and then on top of that, this isn't just all solder, there's actually ground braid. 1/4 inch wide, tight, nickel plated ground braid that I solder in there. So there's a physical enough metal mass on the surface area to carry the amount of amperage that this is going to pull. I mean, really, this is kind of just a workaround for the amount of footprint that we have, right? I should do the video. I got to restore amplifier number 1. The guy that owned it, rest his soul, his name was Fred Tealton. And I built it for him 13, 14 years ago. And when he passed, I bought it back from him. It was a Texas Star 1200 hot plate. It's an all metal clad. I took all this garbage out. Ended up picture framing this pan and did a copper clad board on top. Put all the it really turned out well. That thing made like 2300 watts peak, but the outside of it is just hammered asshole. And it's one of those pie in the sky projects. Like, I got it back just so I could restore it, and then I was going to put it in a case and put it on the shelf because it's like the legit very first as BBI amp number 1, right? But we could get more out of this. We could get a whole lot more out of this if we were to metal clad the board, but then it totally destroys the resale value of this incredibly rare piece of equipment. So it's about as far as we can get, and this is the safest that we can make it. Big heavy duty power wire going in, good grounds, good hot and negative leads. I mean, it's good. This is the best that we can come up with. So let's start over here. So that's a 1000 watt slug in peak, 1000 in average, 5 watt slug in reverse back from the bird, 10,000 watt dummy load. So this is what we're going to put into it for drive. We're using the derail striker 955. Hello, audio. We're going to put 120 watts. We're going to punch into this 16 pill. Turn the amplifier on, leaving the overdrive off. Just lays it in the corner. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to 2x. So that meter fully to the right hand side is 2000 watts. Doesn't matter, we're not going to be here very long. Off the charts once again. So let's get on the chart to where we can actually register what we're doing. So now we're down to 5 times. So we're reading the 0 through 50 scale, and we're adding a couple zeros. Okay? Okay. So 125 watts worth of drive makes about 2400 watts. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Here's our input tune. We're going to first look at the striker. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, 1.5 swing into 2 bars. We'll come up here and look at the 5 watt slug in reverse. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's what they call very pretty. Well, that's all fine and fun. Let's see, what's it doing for amp draw over here? 110 amps average. So, all right, let's grab the bench 2 pill and let's drive this a little bit harder. We're only going to put a couple hundred watts in this. I don't feel like blowing any Toshibas. That comes out of my pocket, and I'm just not down to climb like that. Just not. So we're going to take a nice, normal, my 2950 that rarely puts out any schmooze, like 28 peak watts. We're going to run that into my bench 2 pill, and then we're going to hit this with probably 200 or 300 watts worth of drive, and we'll see what we get out of performance-wise. It's going to be close to $3,000, I think. Okay, so we are on the 2950, the 2 pill hitting it, and I got the mic gain turned way down, so 1, 2. Put about 275 watts. Well, 325 watts-ish into this thing. Let's go down to 5x. And we should see 32 to 3500 out of this pretty easily, I do feel. Yeah. Yeah. Works just fine. Works just fine. So this is our setup right here. All right, well, now let's see if all the work to the tin and the fans and everything else works. Let's put all that on there. So let's bring this all the way home. This is completed, tested, running. I'm going to put a little blob of paint right here on the input trimmer. And that's to help keep it from moving, but also to help keep the honest people honest, right? So let me go over here. God, I got to clean this place up. This is getting ridiculous. Okay. Move 10 things to get freaking fingernail polish. My God. Pull a glob there. And a little glob down to there. Just like so. So that can't jiggle loose and transport, and the guy get it on his end and be like, oh, what the hell, man? My swirls aren't right. All right, let's get this done. We need to quietly thank the Patreons for making it possible that you've been able to watch this entire content without ads. I appreciate everybody in the Patreon group. These guys right down here, www.patreon.com/BBIamps. I appreciate what you guys allow us to have here together. And they so heartily underwrite this channel. So if you've ever learned anything from this channel or like the content that I produce, you might want to think about coming and joining the Patreon group. That's all I'm going to say. Power on. Overdrive on. Fans on. Look at the two lights. Isn't that sweet? SSB delay. So that's the reason I got everything so dim, because these are incandescents. Now, let's go over here and we'll turn the light back on. Excuse me, Tesla. I love that dog. Okay. Fun little factoid. This bulb was burnt out. And these are twist lock, and you got to be so careful with these. These are twist lock remove. And these are just like the regular push button lights that are on the front of the 250, 350, 667, all the push button lamps. Same thing, they're push button holders, universally the same. I was going to convert these over to LED. I thought, man, they'll be way brighter and be cooler and everything. This lens cap is so short that it won't allow me to put the LED lamps in there. So, to our new owner, guard these with your pecker life. Okay? There are literally no replacements left for these. They both work, obviously. It's a nice little iridescent blue. Everything works exactly as it's supposed to. It's wonderful. Well, gentlemen, I'm done. This amplifier is done. It's ready to go to a new home. I mean, it's an old amp. This thing was probably built 20 years ago, and we got to understand that. To the new owner, you know that there's a couple little scuff marks here and there, and you know, some of this black oxided hardware that's on here, so it's got a little bit of patina to it. It's a fancy way of saying rust, but the inside of the case is right. There are no major dents, dings, wobbles, bends, whoops, hoop-de-doos, or anything going on with it. So just say thanks, gentlemen. Let's give a big shout out to Penalabs, Excess Power, Siglet, MechMan, Bird. Of course, you can't see them at this second. Here, we'll pen over Coaxial Dynamics. And a big shout out to all of you guys for tuning in and following along. I want to say thanks. We're on to our next thing. Gentlemen, I'll see you. Click, click. Thought I was done, but I am not. This amplifier also comes with this little pack of screens to replace these gold fan guards if you wanted to. And it also comes with this 3D printed set of V, just like the front on the front of this thing. Same color. Beautiful red V fan guards. So if you wanted to, you could replace these and have Texas Star, the v3.2, so the Viking. It'd be pretty neat, but I'm not going to put them on there. The new owner can put them on there if he wants, or I can leave them the stock gold color. I mean, in an ideal world, we'd send these off and have these gold plated, right? Okay, now I'm done. I'll see you. Bye-bye.